What if I told you that you're wasting time thinking of the perfect name for your main character when, in reality, they may not need one at all? Now, I know what you're thinking. Every story I've ever read my entire life has had a main character with a name. So what do you mean they don't need one now? And I agree with you. Some of my favorite books that I read growing up were the Junie B. Jones series, and do I still remember how the story started? Every single one of those chapter books started the same way, where it was like, "Hi, my name is Junie B. Jones, and the B stands for Patrice, but I don't like that, so I just go by B." Right? Most books you read have a main character, and once they have a name, it really helps you establish their personality and like a voice and a tone. I love to read Junie B. Jones books because of Junie B. Jones. Junie was a fun, charismatic, sarcastic, and funny character that I wanted to see across her whole series. And that's how we approach any of the books that we read or write, where we're trying to make a great main character that people want to follow along the journey in your first book, and if you're doing a series, for the entire series as well. But sometimes your main character actually doesn't need a name, and it actually will help your story a lot more if your main character doesn't have a name. If you think this is completely impossible or that people don't do this when they write books, you will be severely mistaken. A lot of authors actually choose to go this route, where their main character doesn't have a name explicitly stated in the book. And this happens a lot more than you think. Here are just a few books that I found on my personal bookshelf where the main character does not have an explicit name throughout the entire story. And those are just a few books that I pulled from my personal bookshelf here at my home. That's not including all the books that exist in libraries and in bookstores across our nation and worldwide as well. So it's more common than you think for a main character to actually not have a name mentioned in the story. But you may be asking yourself, why? Why would an author choose not to name their main character when, like we talked about earlier, people really gravitate and really latch on to a character once they know a little bit more about them and they get to establish their personality and their tone and their voice, or maybe their character design? Why would you sacrifice all of that by not having that included in the story at all? And it's for that very reason that authors don't have their main characters with a name or really having a big personality that stands out throughout the whole story. And that's because when you don't have your main character have a name, that forces the reader to focus on the story. For instance, this book here, Stella's Stellar Hair, which is about our main character, Stella, and you can tell by the title, we're gonna talk about her hair being fabulous, beautiful, stellar, out of this world even. And what makes this book really stand out is that we are following Stella as she is exploring the galaxy and exploring different hair types and hair textures. And so as a kid reading this book, you would gravitate towards Stella. And so as you reflect on the book when you're done, you would say, Stella went on this great journey, Stella learned this, Stella learned that. That is the power of having a main character's name included in the story. Whereas in any of these other books that I listed before, like The Cot in My Living Room, The Cot in the Living Room. In this book, it's about a young girl who's learning about people who are homeless because her mother allows people to stay on a cot in the living room, and she gets to learn about homelessness and how she can make a difference in her community. What's really great about this book, like I said, she learns this, she learns that. This main character on the cover never has a name stated. The people who come to stay on the cot do have names stated. Her siblings have names stated, but she as the main character doesn't. So what does that allow a reader to do? Instead of being like how we were with Stella, of saying Stella went to do this and Stella learned that, now we can say, well, what did you learn from the book? They can say, I felt this, I learned that, I saw, I read. It's a lot easier for a kid to put themselves into the story, to put themselves in the shoes of the main character when the main character doesn't have a name. So that way, when they think about it and they talk about it with people, instead of talking about what the character did, they themselves feel like they are the character. They input themselves into the story and they connect to it a lot deeper. So no, your main character does not need to have a name. So don't overthink it. Don't stress out about it if it's not coming together as you're writing your book. In fact, I would actually challenge those of you who already have names picked out for your main character to rewrite your manuscript and to change their name to just their pronouns. Instead of saying Joshua does X, Y, and Z, or saying Ella does A, B, C, and D, why don't you just change it to he rides his bike, she goes for a walk? And rewrite your whole manuscript like that and see if you notice any difference in the story about how it makes you feel or the impact of it. And I even encourage you to have your editors or people that you trust to read your story with your main character having a name and with your main character not having a name, and see if they even notice a difference as well. Because when you're an author, you have to make so many choices. You have to decide what the character will look like, what they're gonna be doing, what they're gonna be wearing, who is gonna be their support team, are they gonna have a pet or not a pet? Like, there's so many small, minute details that you have to do as an author. And one of the things that you can offload so that way you're not overthinking it is something as small as if your main character actually needs a name. Because depending on the story that you're writing, and also depending on the goal that you want for your readers to take away, if you want them to take away more so the story and the lessons there, you may want to try not having your main character's name listed to see if there's a difference in the level of impact that you're able to make and for people to insert themselves into the equation. But that's just my opinion. Feel free to let me know down in the comments below. Do you agree? Should a main character's name be stated or not stated in a book, and does it actually make a difference?